Wonderful. Thank you all so much for joining us. Tonight is week 4 of Inmates to Entrepreneurs 8-week course, meaning after tonight, we are at the halfway point. We are so excited to have you. As always, I've got a few quick housekeeping remarks, and then we will jump right in. So first and foremost, as always, I am recording this, so you will receive a recap email from me tomorrow with the slides, with the recording, with any links that we throw in the chat. If for some reason you don't hear from me by tomorrow night, please let me know. I know I've got a couple of emails that are bouncing back that are full. So just let me know if you don't hear from me. I apologize for last week. YouTube normally takes like an hour to process our videos, and last week, I'm not even kidding, it took like 6. So that's why you got the email pretty late. I do apologize for that. I'm going to try and process this one super early in the morning. So hopefully we don't have that same issue. If your username is not your actual name, if you could please change that for me. You can throw it in the chat if you're not sure how to do that, or you can message me, you can email me. Just let me know who you are and that you're here. I would really appreciate that. Tonight, we do have a very content-heavy course. I like to give that warning up front. Normally, the classes aren't this content heavy, and I'm sure Nadav and Josh will explain a little more. So if you have questions, we are definitely going to try and get all of them answered, but I would really encourage you to utilize the chat feature this evening. And then next week, we're going to be talking about vision and feedback, so it's a little bit lighter of a class. So if there's still questions, we certainly have a little more leeway next week as well. Other than that, I don't think I have, I'm sorry, I'm checking my list. I don't think I have any other notes for you. Obviously, our next class is next Wednesday. We have both Josh and Nadav back with us, and I'm making you both co-hosts right now. And then I want to apologize. I just adopted some kittens this morning, and they just got used to my house within like the last 30 minutes, and they are causing chaos. So if you see me just like sprint off the screen for a second, just ignore me, go about class. No big deal. But Nadav and Josh, I have made you both co-hosts. If you could just remind us who you are, and then whenever you're ready for the PowerPoint, just let me know.
All right, so while Allie is in kitty heaven, oh my goodness gracious me, Allie. I am Josh Nowak. I am co-founder of Breaking Free Industries. We are a screen printing shop here in Southern California. More than that, we are a second chances employer, and you can find us at Breaking Free BFI. And on the other microphone here is my esteemed colleague, Nadav Meir.
Too short of an intro. We need a lot more Josh intro there. That was not enough. And Allie, so good to see your cats. This is a joy for us to have folks on the call showing their pets. But hi, everybody. I'm Nadav Meir. I'm really excited to join in with you guys at this point in this cohort. So I'm a longtime entrepreneur. I've had 15 years of self-employment that I bring to all that experience to these classes for you guys. And about a year ago, I switched and did a midlife career change. And now I am a professor, a lecturer at Texas A&M University, teaching marketing and management. So I have the privilege of teaching this material to you guys, and also the privilege of teaching it to very privileged kids and trying to make that connection. And it's the same material. I get to bring it to you guys, and they're paying $200 every time they see me in the room. So it's really fun to be able to be here. And this is a fun class. Josh was famous for bringing it, this class, the accounting and finance class. So it's I'm looking forward to what we're going to get into.
Alrighty, let's hear some pitches. Hey, Nadav, if you could just address, just open us up for some pitches here. I've got to go take care of something with my kid's school that just came across on text message. If you can give me like 2 minutes, I'll be right back with you. And then if you could just, let's hear some pitches and then we'll go jump into material.
Sounds great. So as Josh said, putting the pressure on. I haven't heard any pitches yet from this group. I'm very excited to hear pitches. So Allie, I don't know if anybody can just unmute themselves or if we need to get some hands going, but I'd love for you guys to share with us your elevator pitch.
Yeah, so guys, I made it so you can all unmute yourself like we did last week. So if anybody wants to just jump right in, you have the floor.
Otherwise, we'll leave an awkward silence here. And that's not that fun for anybody. So we will start our awkward silence time. We got Jimmy is ready to drop the elevator pitch. So Jimmy, there you are. How are you, sir?
Hello, how y'all doing today?
Fabulous.
Well, I'm gonna just get right into it and jump right into my pitch. So my name is Jimmy Gorey. I am the owner of Greatness AZ Cleaning Services. I provide cleaning services for everything from commercial to residential, and I'm here to keep your house clean. You can contact me at greatnessaz88@gmail.com. Yeah, that's what I got right there.
That is so solid, Jimmy. Great job. Thanks for sharing that. So this is the kind of succinctness that I look for, right? Like if we meet in an elevator and we have 15 seconds to chat, drop it on me. And you went through exactly the list that I like to hear. Who are you? What's your business name? What are you doing? The only thing that maybe there's room for is to have one more sentence with like, here's what makes us special. We're the guys with the purple truck. We're the guys who bring kittens with us to the job. You know, whatever the special thing is that sets you apart, that's a fun thing to drop in there too. And the only other thing might be if there's a social handle, sometimes dropping an email in conversation feels kind of weird, right? You're like, oh yeah, email me, here's my email. But if you drop a social handle, be like, yeah, you check out my before and after shots on Instagram at this handle, done. But very confident, very succinct, and I'm stoked for you. Cleaning business is awesome. You know, I don't know if you guys have talked about it a lot on this in this group, but I love cleaning businesses. They're really easy to start in that way, where it's all about gumption, it's all about hustle. You're selling your labor for a high price, and it can be beautiful. So thanks so much for sharing.
Okay, for sure.
Great job, Jimmy. And I see Michael here with a hand up, next in line. I don't know if you can unmute yourself there, Michael. There you are.
There you go. My name is Michael Sherman. I am a life coach and sales trainer for Epic Pursuits, LLC. And we specialize in providing coaching and guidance solutions that help people win in the areas of life they want to dominate in. So nice to meet you.
You too. Great. So I get who you are. I get what you do. I think there was the business name. Are you the owner of the business or are you a coach at that business?
Yeah, I'm the owner and coach.
Okay. So it might be helpful to frame that in that way too. And you say like, I own this business. I also do the work. I'm a coach, some line like that. And then the other thing I was missing, like where are you at? Also with the cleaning business, it becomes important, you know, like what's your service area? Are you doing Zoom all over the place? Or are you in a particular area meeting with folks only there?
Is that a question?
Yeah. Where are you?
I'm all over the place. I mean, we provide services in person. We provide services via Zoom. I love specializing in person, especially in group settings.
Nice.
Yeah.
So where's the location for that in person?
In person. So in person, I'll do coffee shops, you know, settings, Panera Breads, places that, you know, allow for those types of meetings. I've also done sales trainings at local dealerships where we provide auto sales training.
But are you in Atlanta? You know, what's the city name? Is it Atlanta or where are you actually based out of?
I'm based out here in the Seattle, Washington area.
Seattle, nice. So I think that's an important thing to drop, you know, where you're like, I'm doing in-person stuff around Seattle, Bellevue, you know, like give me some geographic limitation of where you're working. That can help people kind of frame what it is, you know, and what you can offer them. You know, and imagine you're going to be meeting up with people, right? You meet people at the chamber, you meet people in the elevator, you meet random people. You know, it could be a good data point to drop on them. And then the last thing I would harp on you, Michael, I think you did a great job, very solid. I want your socials or your YouTube video. You know, if you check out the YouTube channel where you have a sample of a sales training that you're doing or something like that, that can be powerful to drop too.
Okay.
But thanks for sharing.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I feel like I want to get the training. You know, this is it's a beautiful thing. I'm feeling sold on that. Josh, welcome back. I don't know if you heard any of that or you're still in the zone. You're muted too. I don't know if Josh is with us. I see him talking, but it's possible he's on the phone. All right. I see Suzette with a hand up. So Suzette, please unmute. Join us. How are you today?
Great. Hi, my name is Suzette Nicole Allen. I am the owner and founder of Vin LLC. Vin is a t-shirt jewelry company. We are located in Washington, D.C. area. We are faith-based, and we create one-of-a-kind t-shirt that spread positivity and encouragement. We are on every social media. Our handle is warriorprincess.com.
Amazing. Nailed it. Whatever training you guys have been getting these last few weeks, it's working. You guys, the pitches are amazing. This is great, Suzette. I really love to hear.
Last week was my first class. So I had like 3 weeks to catch up. So I spent all week listening to week 1, 2, and 3 and trying to get it. So I was really nervous tonight because I'm like, this is my second class.
Well, I appreciate you getting over that nervousness to unmute and raise your hand and give the pitch to the group, because that's a leap for a lot of folks now that they're afraid to make their voice heard. So thank you for making your voice heard. It's really nice to hear. I think it's a great business, potentially. I think that, there's a lot of nice angles there, and Josh can talk to us more about that. Selling shirts, it's a huge market. There's something really nice about being a small fish in a big pond, that you can do a lot, in that way where you don't have to become huge. You can be a small player and do really well within that group. I got your confidence, and you told me about the socials. You told me where you're located. I feel like you checked all the boxes. So amazing job. Thank you, Suzette. And I know Zoom user, I think it was your name, James, sir. I think you were first on the list. So I'll invite you to unmute and join us here. There you are.
Hello, you talking to me? Was you talking
Yes,
to me?
sir. Yes, sir.
I'm Julian. I put it in the chat.
Julian, I got the first letter right. That's about as good as my wife lets me do. So this is beautiful.
Oh, come on, man. Get it together, man. Hey,
Julian.
So my name is Julian Miller. I'm a motivational speaker. I'm based out of Boston, Massachusetts. And so what I do is just give you a little background about my past. I'm a recovering heroin addict. I've been clean for 16 years. I did 8.5 years in the federal penitentiary for unarmed bank robbery. So what I do is I'm looking to connect with the youth. I go to high schools and colleges and share my story with them, just to connect with them and just to, share my story, because my experiences could be life-changing to somebody else. Boom. That's it.
Powerful, Julian. Yeah. It can be dicey. And I think Josh talks about this. You have too much backstory when you don't know your audience, right? Mm-hmm. And that's something that you guys will learn how to judge. Clearly with this group, if you want to drop your background story, this is clearly, hopefully, the most judgment-free zone you're going to ever have, right? In that way. But knowing your audience in some other ways could be good. So, depending where you're at, you can be like, I do motivational speaking around incarceration. Here's where I would love to see a social. That's the other part. Boston is great. I was going to ask you if you were wearing a Sox hat. It was like, you're too far away from the picture for me to see if it's a Sox hat. So, nice. So I'm from that neighborhood originally. I was born in Boston, but lived in Providence. You see my Providence stuff behind me. So I got all my Rhode Island stuff. And
what Boston? What part of Boston?
So I have family from all over, but I used to work in Dedham. I know a lot about Boston, so it's great to have some Boston representation here. But I know Dorchester, Mattapan, all those areas.
I'm from Roxbury.
Roxbury, yeah, nice. This is amazing. It's a small world, Julian. It's beautiful.
Absolutely.
So in your pitch, I think that I would want to hear one more step in terms of like, here's how you can find me. And if it's a social, if it's a YouTube channel, and whatever it might be, dropping something like that can be really powerful too. Because all you folks who've spoken so far, right? Imagine you are memorable people. When you run into people, they will remember you. They're like, there was a special connection. I remember this person doing this amazing thing. I want the coaching. I want the cleaning. I want the t-shirt. I want the motivational speaking. People want this and they want to remember you. So give them a little bit of a key that later, as they think about you, they can look that up and find you.
Thank you. I appreciate that, man.
Welcome, Julian. But great job. Other than that, also the confidence. I get it. I can imagine that you are dropping some wisdom on some young folks.
Yeah,
Beautiful thing.
I'm giving it to him.
It's good. Don't hold back, right? This is great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Julian. I see Josh. Are you unmuted?
I am. I am
Welcome
good to
back.
go.
You're gonna. Did you hear Julian's pitch, or should we go to Quincy? I think had their hand up too.
Well, given the time, we need to start jumping in here because otherwise this is a content heavy week.
It is.
Um,
All right. Well, thank you guys for you made the pitches. Quincy, we'll get you next time. Very fun. Clearly, this was a party. You guys brought the pitches. Thank you for that energy. That's going to carry us through the class. And for everybody that didn't say anything, get ready for next time. We'll have a chance to do this again.
For sure. And yeah, Julian is a stud. He's come a very long way in a very short period of time. And it's kind of the joy of when you run the class multiple weeks. It's awesome. See you, Grace. If you have to call back, go ahead, no problem. This week, we're going to talk about infrastructure and all the legal things. This is one of those weeks that you're going to probably put your eyes to the back of your head and say, oh, goodness gracious me, no. It's a content heavy week. So we're going to talk a lot about kind of some of the details here. Please, as you have questions, drop it into the chat window as we go here. We are going to move kind of quickly. If you have questions and concerns that you want to take offline, by all means, hit me up. And with all that said, let's jump in here. Legal infrastructure. Oftentimes, the first thing people do when they start a business is like, okay, I'm going to get an LLC. I'm going to start a business. I need an LLC. I keep in mind very firmly that most of our businesses are going to start with about maybe $1,000 seed capital. In some states, you can start an LLC with really little money, like $60, $70, not a big deal. State of California, it's $800 minimum tax plus another $150 to form the entity. So if you're trying to start a service business with $1,000 or less, you have just given the state of California a check for $950 of your $1,000. So you really want to consider some of the issues that you have, such as what's the complexity of the business, what's the risk of the business. And the types of structure that we have are sole proprietorship, which is basically someone like, hey, I'm going to go make some shirts. Give me money for shirts. That's a sole proprietorship, meaning that there's one owner. It's not really regulated at all. The owner has complete control of the business. And there's no separation between the business assets and my personal assets. If I mess something up, someone can take my house, my car, whatever it is. There's no liability protection on that sort of stuff. And then all that. Then you have this hybrid entity called a limited liability company. If you are going to start an entity, this is probably the one that you'll end up doing. It's a hybrid entity, meaning that you kind of can pick and choose some of your benefits depending upon where you're at, because an LLC on its own, you can be a little flexible as it relates to tax, yet it still provides you a level of corporate protection. So it's usually pretty light on the administrative side, but you can pick and choose your tax benefits. Partnerships are two people doing business together. A partnership is basically when you have two or more people that would otherwise be a sole proprietorship, but two or more people can create a limited liability company. In some states, there are limited liability partnerships. It kind of depends upon where you're at. For almost everyone on the call here, my strong recommendation is looking at a sole proprietorship for two key reasons. Why spend the money that you may not have for an entity that you may not need for a business you may not own in 6 months from now? Find out if you like this stuff. Find out if you like doing what you're doing. Once you get some traction, cool, rock on, entity out, geek out. What you want to do more than anything here is contact the people who run your insurance for your house, the same people that you call for renter's insurance and your car insurance. Ask them about an umbrella policy that if what you're doing can be covered under your renter's insurance or just something along those lines. If you were to be sued, let's just say Julian does his presentation and someone sues him because he spoke only for 48 minutes instead of 55 minutes, and someone is now suing him. You're not going to shut down your business on a count of 7 minutes, but if someone's going to sue you, an insurance company will step in and provide counsel for you. They'll provide the money for it and they'll defend you as part of your insurance policy. An LLC is when you really, your only option left is to, the nuclear option, and you shut down the business altogether. That's the only way that really comes into play. Question in the chat window: how do you maximize deductions if not an LLC? The same rules apply. An ordinary and necessary business expense, those laws apply regardless of the entity you choose. Now, that said, there are certain benefits to each of those entities between an LLC versus a corporation versus a partnership. But fundamentally, the same business, if it's a business deduction for a partnership, it's a business deduction for a sole proprietorship, it's a business deduction for an LLC, and it's a business deduction for a corporation. There are some limitation differences between them all, and there are some some other nuances about it, but for the most part, a general rule, and there are a few exceptions, Section 162 of the Internal Revenue Code applies to everything. Plain and simple, as is 179, 178, all of those kind of upper 170 kind of deductions are going to apply throughout. So hopefully that helps you, Elaine. Could we go to the next slide?
Can I jump in real quick? Couple
Go
thoughts
for it.
about that?
Jump in and go to the next slide too.
Sure. So Josh, right on. I think for a lot of folks too, the issue with making this decision is what Josh said. If you're going to start, being sole proprietor is easy. You really, most places, depending what you have to register for, it might not be anything. You might have to register for sales tax, you might want to get insurance, but it can be pretty easy to start, especially to test the waters. And you just claim this income on your personal tax return. And if and when you want to make it more complicated, you can. The other thing about sole proprietorship is you have no liability protection, personal liability protection built into that structure. So if someone sues you, they can take your house, they can take any assets that you have, theoretically. If you are in a position where you do not have a lot of assets, let's say you're a returning citizen, you don't have many assets, then that's a risk that you should be more willing to take. That should be less scary to start that type of entity. The other thought about entity is the only thing that matters with this is how you communicate with the IRS. Your customers do not care what you choose in this case. This is not relevant to selling. This is just relevant to how we communicate with the IRS and our accountant. The other thing about an LLC, starting an LLC means that even if it's easy, if you're in a state where it's easy to do it right now, when it comes time to file the tax returns, it's a separate tax return. And depending on your accountant, it can be pretty expensive. And that's just another thing to think about. They're like, oh yeah, easy to set up, costs $70. And it's like, wait a minute, why do I have to do another tax return every year for $1,000 for my accountant? For a lot of folks, that's what it looks like. So it can be a little complicated and loaded in that way. So we can have the next slide, please, Allie. Thank you. Yeah, so things to think about as you're considering how you're going to grow the business and how your type of registration is going to go with it, your entity choice. What is the risk level? Which really means how often do businesses like yours get sued? If you're a motivational speaker, I assume that you are not getting sued very often. You don't own the building that you're in, right? You're not up for trip and fall. You could be up, like Josh was implying, for breach of contract. Let's say if you don't speak for long enough, right? But other businesses, maybe in the cleaning business, people are letting you in their house or in their business. So if something goes missing, right, and you're an easy mark for getting blamed for that, and they fire you, but then also sue you, maybe that's a risk. But I think that's a question. Allie, I think we just went one further than we should have. Thank you.
I'm sorry. I had a cat run across my desk.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. You can blame the cats every class, Allie. It's all good. I love it. Like I was saying, if you don't have a lot of assets, that should be part of your consideration. It might be easier to have a sole proprietorship if you don't have a lot. Whether or not you have investors is also a consideration. Depending if you do, that can complicate this choice a little bit, being that sole proprietorship, you can't sell shares. If you want to sell a little bit of equity to an investor, that's not going to be possible. And then those tax implications, how it gets taxed, and if you are blessed enough to make money, then you are blessed enough to pay taxes, right? And there's all those different levels of how that goes. But if you don't make money or not very much money, you're not going to have a big tax issue. All right, on the legal front. So we are not lawyers. This is not a legal course. Everything that we're telling you is just kind of based on our experience with how it's been to work with lawyers and what kind of legal stuff we've seen. Generally, we recommend that you find a good lawyer to help navigate what you need. Because at the end of the day, when you start a business, you are responsible for knowing everything you must know legally to start that business. Feels like an awfully high bar. You know, as you jump into it, they're like, wow, I need to know all this stuff. But folks who have a good lawyer, and sometimes this is someone in their family, someone in their circle, sometimes it's someone that you hire, but again, this can depend on the complexity of the business. If you're in a simple business, maybe you don't need a lawyer. Avoiding bad people. This is really a tough one, right? Because this is a judgment call. Who are we talking bad people? Folks that are, you know, doing illegal activity, but also folks that sap your karma, sap your motivation, right? Or just not ethical actors or moral actors that you would want to be associated with. It should be a good karma party, right? Whatever we're doing in business and in life, this is your chance to do beautiful, good things for yourself and for your community. You know, keep that in mind, you know, as you make these ethical choices and things are brought to you. Should you bring in legal help, right? So this is kind of the question of where is the line? How do I know if I do need a lawyer? So there is the SCORE Center in a lot of places, which is really retired executives, retired business people volunteering to help new business owners. If such a group exists in your city, highly recommend that you get in touch with them and talk to them about your business dreams and plans, because they can help you figure out if you need to talk to a lawyer, and if not, maybe why. Josh and I and your other instructors are also here. We are all volunteers and love to do this. We can talk about your specific business ideas. But thinking about the risk and complexity is something you kind of have to wrap your mind around. How will I get sued, right? If this hits the fan, what does that look like? And what might lawsuits against my business be like? So you can plan for the worst. Complexity and the ownership structure. So again, this is thinking, imagine the end in mind. Thinking about that structure on day one can be important. And Josh, I don't know if you're back here. I see your camera's off. I know he's having chaos right now. I'm going to roll on. I know Josh will have something to say if and when. All right, we are rolling. So Ali, if we could please have the next slide. All right. Law firms are very good at separating you from your money. This is what they're in business to do. Just like we are all dreaming about being in business to personally make money for ourselves, lawyers are in the business of getting as much out of you as possible in a financial way. So they usually charge their billable hours, is what they call it. It's usually a 6-minute increment, something like that, and it's in the hundreds of dollars per hour. So if you fire off an email to them with a question, all of a sudden that could be billable hours, and then you get a bill in the mail for $100 because they answered an email. So you really have to be careful in terms of what they're going to charge you. Sometimes and often they will offer free consultation, one free meeting with them. But you know, the good lawyers will get you and try to get you to be a client and charge you money, because that's what their business is. You know, do not squash an ant with an elephant is very sound advice. Part of the other corollary to that is how much justice can you afford, right? You can chase a lot of ants with a lot of money for no reason. So sometimes if you don't need a lawyer, don't get a lawyer. And that was always my feeling in business. If there was an option where I could avoid interacting with a law firm in any way, that was the preferred option. Just because that's how painful it is for me to deal with law firms. I do not find any joy in it. And I've always felt that it's been a financial black hole where you don't know where the end is. And I know this from personal experience. So try, you know, if there's a chance to avoid it, that might be the best strategy. Validate the things they say that represent serious material risks. So again, this is thinking about risk. What are the risks of your business? And if they're telling you, here are some holes where you have some big risks that you need to think about either insuring against those risks, you know, maybe the LLC becomes really important. Just validate that with other people, other sources. You know, it could be other reading that you do. It could be talking with other businesses that are in the same business, those business owners. You'll be surprised, you know, and thinking about Michael with sales training. You know, if you reach out to folks doing sales training on the other side of the country or in Florida or other places, you say, what are my risks of doing sales training, right? Do you guys ever get sued? Other business owners from other places will talk to you. They'll tell you. And it's kind of, you need to paint a picture where stuff you hear from lawyers is only one of the images in a whole collage of information that you want to build for yourself. Don't get a lawyer that charges you for every interaction. Like I was saying, the billable hours phenomenon is real. They love to bill you. All right, reasons you might need a law firm. So private placement memorandum, this type of business arrangement, incorporation documents, which depending on the state, lawyer needs to do them. And, you know, incorporation could be just creating an LLC with what's called an S corporation election, S corp election. And that's what typically a lot of small businesses do. For some states, you do not need a lawyer to do that. And speaking from experience of having LLCs in a few different states, it can be as easy as on the state Secretary of State website, filling it out, a one-page website, checking one box, you're done. Too easy. So lawyers, though, will advertise the service, and then you might pay them hundreds of dollars to go to that one-page website and fill it out for you. So kind of be careful what you're getting in that way. Sometimes if there's big dollar contracts involved, that can be an issue for a lot of businesses. And it's the power of the big customer, right? If you have one big customer, if someone comes to you and they say, hey, you know, we want to hire you for a cleaning job. We're going to hire all of your labor. We have all these buildings, all these rental houses to clean. We're booking your cleaning company solid. Every hour you can give me, we're hiring you, right? And it's like, wait a minute. You guys all of a sudden have a lot of power over my business, right? And if they don't pay you, imagine, right? You send everybody out to clean and they're like, we'll pay within a month, and they don't pay you, but you have to pay everybody. You can get yourself into some problems, right? So you might need some legal contracts. You might need a lawyer in that case to write contracts and think through what's needed for those kind of situations where you have big dollars involved. Because big dollars, you got to see the flip side too. When you think about big dollars coming in, profit for you, you also see big dollars of risk and big dollars of loss on the other side. Employee contracts, if you need them, that could require a law firm. You know, sometimes also the gig worker thing, that's happening too, Uber driver type jobs. If you're a business that has contact with gig workers, you plan for folks like that, might like that clear away and know legally. And this is the biggie, the wild card. Legal disputes that are not when you are sued, when you get into this kind of situation that you cannot avoid having. So I'm gonna carry on here.
Ever get
John,
the feeling that no one's leaving you
you're gonna jump
alone?
in?
Okay, I'm going to whine for just a second. I have often said that entrepreneurship is not for whims and entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. I started my day at 6:30 a.m. picking up inventory. I have not stopped since. The first time I sat down was to teach at 3. So if you want to be an entrepreneur because you think you're going to be just sitting back and making a bunch of money like Nadav, I am sorry to say that only Nadav can make that happen, and Nadav is not sharing his secrets.
You're too kind, Josh. You're too kind. No, but this is what success looks like, right? If you are successful, you are busy. So this is a good thing.
Well, you know, it's interesting because one of the cool things that I'm working with now, mind you, I'll just take a 30-second kind of sojourn here, off ramp here, and upset Allie's kittens here because I'm going to take time away on the most content rich of the week. Network. Never waste an opportunity to start taking conversations with other people in the community about who are strategically aligned with your business. So earlier today, I met with my local congressional representative's chief of staff to talk about opportunities. How do I grow my business within the community? How do I entrench myself and endear myself more to the community? What can I do to help them? What can they do to help me? Understanding what are the grants and funding opportunities that are available to do and advance my business. there was a person when I first started my tax practice who said the best sales advice that they could offer up was to shamelessly ask for this from everyone. I'll add to that. That's quite true. And then I think I want to add to it is shamelessly ask for the support and help of those around you. I went to jail in part because I didn't ask for the help I needed. Now I'm asking everybody for help. And now guess what? People are actually stepping up in that generally, as we talked earlier on in the session, I think it was week 1, generally speaking, people are excited to help you out. Okay. That said, do we finish this particular side? Are we good?
Yeah, any other thoughts on lawyers? Do you, if you have a
hate
chance to hire a lawyer, will you, just for fun, hire a lawyer?
The cool thing you want to do with lawyers is again, engage with them early, know what they're going to do and what they aren't going to do. Yeah. I mean, the first paragraph here really hits it on the top of it. When you have somebody in your Rolodex ahead of time and you've already engaged with them, even if you don't necessarily need them and buy an hour of their time, it's helpful so that you can kind of decide when you need them to actually engage versus not. It's bad lawyers will always take your money, of course, but a good lawyer will be like, hey, don't worry about this, or call me when. But if you play catch up with a potential legal issue, and sadly, almost every one of us on this line knows what it's like to have to call a lawyer. If you're playing catch up with the lawyer, you're already you're on your heels. If you already have a lawyer on your hand, you can be a lot more proactive and say, oh, wait a minute, I don't need to pay my lawyer yet. I've called him, I talked to her, and she says that, just send a letter and do this, or, tactically, strategically do that. So you're kind of getting that informal guidance before you actually have to kind of lawyer up and put things out on stationery. So on the one side, you don't want to squash an ant with an elephant, and there are plenty of bad lawyers that will take your money and lawyer up. But mind you, people bring in lawyers when you've failed to manage the expectations reasonably. Like you have an employee goes sideways, they hire a lawyer, now you got a lawyer up too. If you address the HR issues ahead of time, then you're in a much better spot. So that's my lawyers. Yeah.
Dropping wisdom. Hey, you want to do the next slide?
Sure, absolutely. Oh, yay, it's accounting time. Accounting, the scoreboard of business is accounting, and the scoreboard looks like an income statement. On the top, if you think about the traditional scoreboard, you have the home team, then you have the visiting team. Hopefully your team has more points than they do. Jeff, yes, most of them are vampires. It's the nature, which is why I think when it comes to hiring any professional service person, be it a dentist, a lawyer, a doctor, you have to do your own homework, and you have to get referrals, and you have to kind of cross-check, and ultimately there's a level of trust. On the left side, on the top of the income statement, you're going to have your revenue, then you have your expenses. At the bottom of the page is going to be your profit, plain and simple. Revenue, the top line, that's going to be the amount of money your customers have paid you for doing what you do best. When you get revenue in the door, that's how you pay for your expenses. Yes, you can turn around and say, well, I contributed money out of my own pocket. I borrowed money from Aunt Matilda. Nadav gave me some cash. Oh, hell no, that's a lie. What we've used to pay for expenses usually is on the revenue side. And it's an objective measure of success. If I turn around and say, hey, I've got a $10 million business, that means, I'm doing $10 million of revenue. That's people are like, oh, wow, that's kind of pretty cool. Right on. Next slide. And then
There
you
was
have
a question. Sorry to pause here on you, Josh. There was one question that came in.
Oh, thoughts on an EA instead of regular accountants? Well, EAs tend to be regular accountants. So you have different credentials for accountants overall. A certified public accountant, CPA. They are folks who are, most of them, if they are younger, have completed 150 hours of college education. The older ones were required to only have a baccalaureate degree. They've passed the uniform CPA exam, which is the nation's hardest professional credentialing exam. I might have passed that exam in my past. And generally CPAs are credentialed to do what's called a test services, meaning that they evaluate your books and records for the outside world. So if you want to get a loan, you can often have a CPA and they say, yep, the financial statements here are representative of the business. They are free of material misstatements is the line. Enrolled agents is really a tax specific designation. You get that either by taking the exam or by being with the service, the Internal Revenue Service for a certain number of years. The EA world tends to kind of compare itself against the CPAs and they say, well, we're the tax professionals, the CPAs are not. In the pecking order, CPAs typically command a little bit more money. EAs are usually pretty qualified on their own right. The reality is that at our level here, an EA is just fine. If you have a CPA, that's fine too. Go with the referrals, go with whom you're comfortable with. An EA can represent you if you're in an audit. An EA can do a competent job of bookkeeping. Do they have the schooling on the technical accounting measures? Not really. Is it going to show up as an issue for our businesses? Probably not. It's more a matter of the EA world is kind of like the Pepsi to the Coca-Cola. Pepsi's always trying to take digs at Coca-Cola, and Coca-Cola says, yeah, whatever. The CPA world kind of says whatever to the EA world, and the EAs are like, hey, wow, we know tax better than the CPAs. It's like, shut up.
So I would take one step back from this too. Like, why is accounting and accountants, why are they important to work with? And what they do, they are IRS blessers, right? You give them your income statement, you prepare the income statement, or you share your Excel data, or you share your QuickBooks data with your accountant. You give them the income statement, they take that, turn it into a tax return, press their stamp on it, that they say it's legit. So that's what their service that they're providing, is that they're looking over your shoulder. So there's a lot of trust that's needed on both sides of it. And Josh can talk about that trust. And, you know, finding an accountant that you like that will take you as a client that maybe other folks have recommended, that's the biggie. And I've used both CPAs and other people that are not CPAs, because a lot of my friends use them and they were, you know, tax preparers. They were very good too. So I think Josh is right. It doesn't have to be a CPA.
Yeah, I mean, find, and we're going to get to this in a little bit here, but find somebody that is as eager about helping you as you are about starting your business. I'm worried less about seasoned. I'm worried less about, and to an extent, I'm less worried even about competency, because, you know, you don't, these businesses that we're typically starting here, Elaine, no. Far too many people I've known on the business side have gotten into such trouble trying to do it yourself on TurboTax. No, don't. I have defended way too many audits of people trying to help themselves on the TurboTax side of things. Maximizing the deductions isn't necessarily the goal. Minimizing your liability commensurate with the minimized of risk is.
And that's where the CPA can help you, because they're like, oh, you could take the home office deduction, right? But you're more likely to get audited. And they know that on the other side.
As well as you sit there and selfishly, you're looking at the numbers and you're looking at about how much I owe. And then like, you're like, well, if I just make this percentage, like you don't know what really are the audit triggers and what the IRS is specifically looking at. Within the industry, when we go to seminars, they will tell you, this is what's getting audited extensively this year. These are not, this is what's in, this is what's in fashion, this is what's going to get you in trouble. These are the, like, TurboTax is competent when you're a wage earning person. I would not recommend it at all once you turn around and start really owning your own business.
Great question.
Do not recommend, as well as the CPA is not there to just, if you have a CPA that all you're doing is data entry work, then you probably have the wrong CPA. Ideally, you're having somebody who helps you navigate and plan out your business beyond tax day. This is not just a matter of form preparation. If that's the case, then yeah, maybe TurboTax is just fine. But if that CPA doesn't maximize your opportunity, then you have the wrong CPA. The answer is not TurboTax. Again, it's fine when you're a wage earning employee, it's fine when you're not, but the problem is that once you start going the rabbit hole of saying, well, gee, I use my car 100% of the time, or when you have a home office, to use what Nadav was saying, a home office, they're like, well, I use my kitchen for my home office. That's cool, right? No, home office means it's for the regular and exclusive use for your business, meaning that you regularly use that space and exclusively for it. If you have a second bedroom with a bed in it, and that's your home office, and you're deducting that space as being your home office, you are going to get that disallowed under audit. Why? Because it's not for the exclusive use. I've seen audit cases and read papers where people use the room, that guest office, that office to hang coats for the Christmas party, twice a year. And the deduction was disallowed because it wasn't for the exclusive use. Like, if you haven't been across the way from an IRS auditor, you haven't lived. And if you haven't had that experience, you don't know what it is that they're looking for. And TurboTax will not, just because TurboTax will say, we'll give you audit protection, that means they'll defend you on the audit. That doesn't mean that they're going to pay you the right to check if you gave them wrong information. So, so what words do I have? If you're intimidated by numbers, overwhelmed with it, talk to a CPA. Talk to a CPA and have them step it through with you. Yes, I've attended many audits. I've had tons of fun with them, and I kind of toy around with them because knowledge is power. Knowledge is the sword. So when they turn around, they kind of get all puffy with me. It's like, okay, fine. If you know what the rules are and you know what the regulations are. I mean, I've told one auditor, dude, you're making up tax law here. Would you like me to call in your manager and explain to them how you're making this up right now? Or do you want to be real with me?
That's the function of the accountant, is to be IRS blesser, right? It's like having a bulldog in your corner that should you need them to go and defend you, that's what they're there for, and that's why that relationship matters so much. That every year, right, for years you could file your taxes, and then 1 year it blows up and they're ready, they're ready to help you. All right, can we steer it back towards the slides?
Yeah, let's go to the next slide.
We haven't done this expense slide. Allie's
Oh,
holding
the expenses. Okay, this is the money that you spend to run your business. And we've got generally two categories: fixed costs, variable costs. Fixed costs are things that, for the most part, aren't going to change month to month. You can do a little, you can do a lot. It's going to be the same. Your rent, your telephone bill, your insurance bill, auto insurance, if you're renting a copier, things that are going to be the same more or less. The second piece is the variable cost. These are the things that if I produce one more shirt, if I clean one more house, these are the things that they are going to change directly based upon how many I sell. So for example, my rent, my phone, insurance, that's all going to be fixed. Variable, it's going to be my shirts, my inks, things that are going to flex and vary depending upon how much I sell. And these appear in your profit and loss. And yeah, you can turn around and say, well, gee, if I sold 1 million versus I've sold 10, my rent is going to go up. Yes. So fixed costs, we say that they're fixed regardless of how much you sell, but the reality is that it's much more broad-based. Yes, if I sell 10 million versus 1 million, my insurance will have gone up, but it's not going to be like, oh, wait a minute, I sold 423 versus 422. I'm not going to pay more for rent for the most part. And this really tells you how much you need to be profitable. And profit basically means the difference between your revenue and expenses. It's the bottom number on the income statement. It is probably the single most important number, and it's the money you get to choose to reinvest in the business and all that. Jeff, in the chat window, does the CPA assume liability for any mistakes made? No. Now, that said, can you sue your CPA for being stupid? Yeah, you can. Good luck. Maybe you can, maybe you can. Can you blame them and can you sue them? And the insurance company will probably step in. Yes.
Are they insured?
What's that?
Is there insurance? Does CPAs have insurance against like malpractice type?
Absolutely. But then separately, when you sign the return, it's you. you're the one who signs. If you look at the fine print above, just above where you sign the federal tax return, I certify under the penalty of perjury that the return is complete, accurate, complete, with all the information of which I am aware. You're signing that under perjury, not, well, your CPA kind of attests to it, kind of. But if your CPA misses the boat and you end up owing a bunch of money, you're the one who's primarily responsible to the IRS. You can sue the CPA if you can prove negligence, if you can prove whatever it is. You can usually get out of penalties if you listened to a CPA. Let me say that again. You can usually get out of the penalty piece if you took a normal, like oftentimes they'll say, well, you tried to take this deduction. Well, I listened to my CPA. Okay, that'll get you out of the penalty piece of it, but you still got to pay the tax back. You got to pay the interest back. But I listened to my CPA. Well, that's great that you listen to your CPA. It's still wrong. Then it's for you to take issue with your CPA and sue them to get it back because they led you astray. But ultimately, primarily, you're the one who's responsible for paying that tax. So there are, on the other side, there's professional liability and there's preparer penalties if the CPA really messes up. Like the service can go after the preparer directly. In fact, I took over, I have known of preparers who have done gross negligence sort of stuff and tax fraud kind of things, and ultimately they get in trouble with the IRS. They can be barred from preparing returns. They can have fees and penalties and all that sort of stuff. And there are also professional standards, no matter if you're a lawyer, a CPA, an enrolled agent, or just a consumer, an uncredentialed preparer, that you assume a level of responsibility. But
It's great.
yeah.
Before we jump to the next slide, I just want to take a management view of this, right? If you're managing your business and you're thinking about how you can get more profit, right? This is the question. We're going to claim this profit. Well, how do we get more, right? Everybody wants more. I want you guys to keep focused. There's two ways the managers can do that, right? You can either drop your expenses, figure out how to do what you're doing for less or nothing, or you can raise your revenue, figure out a way to bring more revenue through the door. But this is kind of the insight if we think about what makes this up and how can we change this so we make more money, right? I want you to keep your eyes on those two balls, kind of going in different directions. They're different styles, right? Are you going to try to really reduce what you're doing, or are you going to try to bring a lot more money in the door? So I think we're ready for the next slide, please, Allie. All right. You want to continue, Josh? You're
Sure.
on a roll. You're doing great.
I'm in a chair, not on a roll. Anyway, cash flow statement for purposes of where we're at right now, kind of a bit of a misnomer. Cash flow statement refers to when we're talking about accounting, when we prepare traditional accounting statements, we use something called GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. And generally accounting principles basically say that, hey, it's revenue when I ship it out the door. Doesn't necessarily mean that I've collected the cash. When I've gotten a bill, that's now an expense. For our purposes here, when we're a small business owner, we're going to go stick to what's called a cash basis accounting concept, meaning that, hey, I get paid, it's revenue. I make out the check, I write the check, it becomes an expense. As you get larger and you have bills that you don't pay for right away, that timing difference becomes more important. And then the cash flow statement kind of bridges you back and forth between the two as far as, well, gee, I've got my cash flow here. And so I've got cash coming in the door as cash, but my accounting records say I actually have a little bit more revenue on the books than I do cash. So that cash flow statement kind of translates and bridges the gap between what generally accepted accounting records will do versus what a cash basis statement or your tax return would cover. But really what we're really saying here is more than the traditional cash flow statement that you'll see in QuickBooks or something like that. You need to have a general understanding, actually a really solid understanding about what is your cash position? How much money do you have on hand? How much of it is already spent? It's like, hey, I've got $1,000. Oh, but I've got a $1,500 bill tomorrow. Oops. That's what, which cues up the next line here of setting up a budget / forecast where you're projecting your sales and your expenses to see if, when you will have a profit and what you need to do to make the money that you want to make. my thought process here is kind of like anytime you create a plan, if you have a plan, you'll generally get to your destination eventually. It may not look exactly as you planned that it would, but you'll get there. Kind of like if you put your destination in your GPS, you'll get to your destination. Ways might turn around and change the route a little bit, and you might not get there exactly when you said, but you'll probably get there. If you think you're going to have a level of financial success without a plan, it's not going to happen. You have to have a plan as far as where you need to be. Like, it's going to be important for you to know, I need to sell 100 shirts to make a profit. Nadav, in his coffee world, he knows how many cups of coffee he needs to sell to make sure that he's made the day. If you're in more networking oriented businesses, how many handshakes do I have to have? How many people do I have to meet to have enough quote opportunities to close enough business to make the money I need to make like, these are things that when you think about the numbers, they all can kind of make sense. And in the chat window, we were talking about, for Michelle, I understand that you might be intimidated by the numbers, but when you understand the metrics that drive your financial results, you can kind of, instead of being worried about the math, you could say, well, if you and I spend an hour together, we could say, well, you know what? I need to sell 5 widgets to make my rent. I need to meet 15 new people a day. Those are concepts that we can wrap our head around far easier than income statements. It's far easier for me to say, I need to attend 1 networking event a week to ensure financial success. I need to have 3 people that I'm sitting down and having meaningful conversation with to hit my numbers for a month. That becomes like a plan isn't necessarily a bunch of spreadsheet numbers that make you want to, commit suicide. A plan means these are the actionable steps I can take every day to assist with the outcome of my business.
100%. And just to jump in here, that poor cash control is the #1 reason businesses fail. Put a huge asterisk on that, people. This is a big deal. This is like a major takeaway from this whole class. If you walk away with one piece of knowledge, how do I keep my business from sinking, right? Think about it. We all hear the anecdotal evidence. We start a business and X number of businesses go bankrupt, right? What is it, 3 out of 4 within however many years? And this is why. Crazy. So how do we not get there? How do we avoid that? And that's really what we want to talk about, is that what does good cash control look like? How do you manage that? And that's one of the big points to take away here. I like to think of it as in nature, there's a tide pool. I don't know if you guys are familiar with tide pools where you live, but water comes in and water goes out, water comes in and water goes out. And that's one analogy to think about cash flow. The other good analogy that I think really works for a lot of folks is imagine your personal budget. You have your own personal money coming in, your income, and you're going to spend money on rent, you're going to spend money on food, and you can't go in the red. So treating a business the same way and knowing that you have, a big car payment, big insurance payment coming up, that you have to make sure you have enough in the bank to cover it. It's very much the same thing with business, where there's no backup in that way. So these are great takeaways. So I think we're ready for the next slide, please, Allie. All right. Do you want to keep rolling, Josh? You want to give me one?
Yeah, this one in particular, I think I need to cover because we get nuanced here.
I'm here for color commentary. I like it.
Well, I love your color commentary. In fact, I love it when you also bust on my chops too. It's fun. Types
My
of
job.
There you go. Excise taxes. We're not typically going to come across these in our businesses. These are usually, I'm going to call them vice taxes. And what I mean by vice taxes, like alcohol, cigarettes, ammunition, those are kind of people's vices. These are taxes that are paid on specific type of good. They're usually either things that we are obsessive about, such as cigarettes and ammunition and alcohol and stuff like that, or true necessities such as, I think, medical equipment, gasoline, things that are unusual. We're not going to come across this too often here, not in our service businesses. The only ones that would be an exception to that, if you have an alcohol, if you're serving alcohol as part of a restaurant, which is usually not a first step for most people in this class. Real estate, well, I don't own the building. Some jurisdictions, and mind you, there's a gajillion jurisdictions in the country. Some jurisdictions will have you pay real estate tax on the property that you're renting. Just be aware of that. It depends on how the lease is written. You got to look for that. Other property taxes, some jurisdictions tax the amount of business property that you have. So, well, I don't own the real estate, but I've got, 5 computers and a couple of machinery items here, and some jurisdictions will tax you on that. Well, are you kidding me? I'm taxed for I paid sales tax. Well, there's that too. But other property tax is a thing. Sales tax, this we're kind of more used to. Congratulations as a business owner, depending upon where you are located, most goods and some services, if you are in the business of selling that, you have been deputized by the state in which you live to collect sales tax on their behalf. This is not your money. This is the state's money that you are empowered, commanded, ordered, compelled to collect on their behalf. Income taxes are the normal taxes that we pay, April 15th, things of that sort. It could be March 15th if you are a corporate entity. You're taxed on the amount of income that your business has made. And then employer-related taxes. Yeah, between employer-related taxes and sales taxes, both of these, you've been deputized by the state to collect these on their behalf. And you can get in serious trouble if you do not pay these properly. Let me say that again. You can get into serious trouble for not paying these properly. Let me say it one more time because 3 times a charm. You can get into serious trouble for not paying these properly. This is not your money. This is the state's money. They get very cranky if you don't collect it on their behalf and remit it timely. Very cranky. So let's not do that. Next slide. You can take this one.
All right, happy to. So analyzing the financial statement from your business to help it run it better is the idea. Thinking about where is your break-even point? How much do you need to sell so that you've paid all those fixed and variable expenses? So your expenses are covered. What point do you start making money? And this can be kind of opaque for a lot of businesses, not very clear. And this is when Josh says, I have certain activities I want to do every day, right? My goal is to talk to this many people and network with this many people, or every day I have to sell this many shirts. Thinking that through in terms of also, when do I start making money? Because for a lot of businesses, the owners are not getting paid right away. That's not the business that we want you to start. The business we want you to start is a business that's really a job for you. In my view, the best business is that you get to build the job you want, that pays you what you want, doing what you want. That's so ideal for me. I really like to frame it that way. But you have to think through the rest of the stuff so you can get to that point to even pay yourself. So yeah, the idea is, how much do you have to sell to cover your costs? So again, those fixed costs are those that you have, even if you don't sell anything. You got to pay for your phone. You got to pay your rent. So, if you have employees, that, got a little bit into the complication of employees on the previous slide. There are a lot of complications with employees. And if you have an employee, you want to make sure that you take care of them more than you take care of yourself, right? It's almost like having a dependent in that way. And that's the way I see the employee relationship. If I'm going to be a responsible boss, that means I'm not going to miss payroll. I'm going to not get paid before my employees get paid yet. So it's a big deal. So if the fixed costs are $500 a month and you make $25 per sale price minus the cost of the sale, you need 20 sales per month before you start making money. And you want to have that number in your mind. So if you've made 25 sales, you've made 5 sales, right? That you got a fire lit under you, that you got to go make some sales by the end of the month to pay everything. And it's just better to be in that position before the end of the month, right? You don't want to find out the middle of next month that you didn't make it last month. You want to be the first to know, not the last to know. This whole idea of accounts receivable is lending your customers money. This is out there, especially with cleaning businesses. Anytime that we have this old school business to business, B2B vibe, where you can say, oh, give me your invoice. We'll put it into our system. We'll cut you a check, within 30 days. And it can be really dicey for businesses starting up to be on the receiving end of that. Because often if you're new, you're not savvy to what you need to do to make sure to get paid. You're the lowest on the totem pole. They're going to pay all their other bills first, and they'll be like, oh, this guy, he's new. He doesn't know what he's doing. We can wait and pay him later. So avoid giving a loan to any of your customers. And how can we do this? We got to train them. Josh mentioned setting expectations. It's so important. You have to train your customers with what those expectations are. You want to underpromise and overdeliver. You really want to set the table, set those expectations very clearly of what it's like to work with you. And if from the beginning you say, I take credit cards, that's it. And you're like, I'm not doing any other accounts receivable. I don't take cash. I don't take checks, only credit card. And I bill the day of my services. Done, and then it's very clear. Then you don't have to have that fight with them later in any way. And that's kind of on you to communicate that. So ideally, don't give a loan to your customers. Because then, of course, back to that cash flow issue, let's say you do give a loan and then you have to pay your employee. And you don't have enough money to pay your employee because you're waiting on the check from the customer that hasn't paid you yet. That is why people go out of business. What do you think, Josh?
Yeah, it is one of my things here that I might offer a small window of payment terms, but anyone that's not giving me a sick amount of business, I do not start printing until we get money. Period.
You busted my chops in the chat about my job choices. Wow, this is equal opportunity today.
Yeah. So here's where we're at on this. So when it comes to receivables, you have many tools that are out there. You have Zelle, you have Cash App, you have Venmo. It used to be, I don't have my checkbook, I don't have my wallet. Well, you've got your phone. If we're going to do a house cleaning thing, you're going to Venmo me before I leave. If you are going to be a house painter, you're going to give me a half deposit when we agree on a date, and you'll give me the other half when the job is done before I leave. There's no excuse to worry about a check. Do not even take a check anyway, because it could bounce. Like, I take card, I take Venmo, I take all these things. All these tools are out there to avoid that issue. And if you take a Venmo, you've gotten the money right away. It's, instant gratification. Bing, you got it. At this point in time, there is no real reason to carry AR at this point in time. You just don't need
accounts receivable. The AR.
Don't need it yet. I mean, at some point in time, it becomes something that you may choose to do. In some industries, it may be required, but it's less and less. And right now, like, I really, really don't go there. I really stick with, hey, when you pay me, we get started. Because what am I going to do with shirts with your branding on it? Once I buy the shirts, it's a 15% restocking fee. I'm not going until I see money.
And the same thing true if you're cleaning. Sorry to jump in, but if you're cleaning a place, right? You don't want to be working for someone that's going to be tough to pay you, right? You got to choose good customers. However you make that happen, this is part of the figuring out who your best customers are too.
Yeah, this is super, 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 super important not to go. Yeah. Do not. Just don't go there. Plain and simple.
You want to take the next slide, Ali? I think
Sure.
we're ready for it, please.
When to finance. Here's the harsh reality. Depending upon the nature of your offense and what the conviction history is, getting money is going to be hard, more or less. There are some grant opportunities, there are some places to get money, and all that sort of stuff. But when you take that money, be really frugal here for a variety of reasons. I love Brian Hamilton, founder of Inmates to Entrepreneurs. His line is, no one ever has a well-capitalized startup. and this is Brian, who is starting, he too has been a serial entrepreneur. You never feel like you have enough money, ever. If you have a startup, like a couple of months ago, I was teaching a class and the gal was like, hey, how do I get $1,000? I'm like, how much business did you start with? She's like, well, I started with $1,000. Well, what happened to it? Well, I bought inventory and it didn't work out very well. So I'm like, okay, so wait a minute. So if I give you another $1,000, what's going to happen? So doing things slower, more organically, more pragmatically is a more sustainable way to do business. It's not to say that if someone gave you $10,000, of course you say yes to it, but a lot of us refuse to get started because I don't have enough money. Guess what? You'll never have enough money. If you're waiting to have enough money to start your own business, you are going to be very old and very gray and you're going to wait a long time before you wait for the ideal moment, because it's just not going to happen. When you take on money is when you need money to grow. And what's not said in that bullet point is when you're ready to grow and that you already have an established business, that you've kind of started to work out the kinks. If you take money to grow a mistake, you are just going to have a bigger mistake. Let's not do that. You can make more money by financing sometimes, sure, because, hey, I can do earlier today. I took a huge order and I'm going to borrow some money to kind of make it all happen because it's too big of an order, even though that they've prepaid for it. By the time that all the money clears, I actually need to get started because even the 3 days of waiting for the credit card stuff to clear, I need to get moving here. So you can typically make more money with financing. And when the financing need to become strong because of competition, that's lesser the issue. Good money to finance, good money to borrow is when you're growing and you've got something that's working that you need to add a little bit more fuel to the fire, if you will. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Hey, I've got perfect credit. Well, that's great. Wait for the time that you need it. Now, that said, getting qualified when you're qualified is a good idea because no one likes to give you money when sales are contracting. So when you're bankable, it's okay to kind of like check out your options. Doesn't mean that you need to pull down the cash and start spending money on a boat or on other crap that you don't need. Getting financing, the traditional deals are banks, credit unions, angel investors. You can use manufacturers, other people's money. VC firms probably not going to be very interested in working with felons. Friends and family probably are, but just remember that when you take money from friends and family, it could go south, and that uncle that gave you a bunch of money may not like you very much if you lose that money. So you really want to kind of work this out ahead of time. Investment clubs, possible. Sub debt, mezz debt, don't even bother with it. Not necessary to address that here. So it's more a matter of starting a business with $1,000 or less is frustrating as heck, but it teaches you to live within your means on the business front. Don't grow too fast. Work out all your errors. If you're going to fail with a $100 sale, not $1,000 or a $10,000 sale. It teaches you good habits in terms of money management. Hey, I only have $1,000. I'm not going to form an LLC. Hey, if I get a deposit from my customer, I get the deposit, I can buy my supplies with that money. I don't have to go borrow money. Oh, it forces us to develop really good habits, is my point. You want to add anything here, Nadav?
Yeah, I have a great job, Josh. I think you hit it on in so many ways. You have a great thinking about financing and how you grow. Like Josh said, if you can avoid financing, you should. And what do you replace it with? Grit, hard work, gumption, and that hustle. I really want to put that hustle in that mind because I think that having that hustle mentality of going out and getting sales, bringing money in the door, that's what separates solid businesses from businesses that go out of business. If you can create that hustle mentality, you don't have to borrow money. And I know this from experience. Every business I've ever started was less than $1,000 to start. And I think that it's totally doable. And I have built pretty big businesses from nothing with that hustle mentality. And I know that it can be done, but it takes some willpower, and it's a combination of that grit and gumption to go out and get it, that hustle, but also the strictness on the other side of saving money, not taking income, not taking money, and because you need to reinvest it in the business so you can grow, so you don't have to finance. Right? I think that's it's a really important point. I think we're ready for the next slide, please, Allie. All right. Do not give away your company too early, meaning don't sell equity, don't sell shares, part ownership in your company to anybody too early. And this is a big point because it's easy for you to do that. Let's say you're selling $1,000, right? You start with $1,000, you're selling $1,000 worth of stuff. Maybe your business, you think it's worth $1,000. Someone comes and says, hey, can I buy 20% of your business for $200? You're like, sure, I'll take your $200. If you fast forward a few years, you're selling for $1 million. You didn't know how big it was going to get. And now all of a sudden someone owns 20% of your business, putting in almost nothing. So you can't imagine how big your business could be. So don't give it away, or, ideally sell any of it or trade any of it for a little bit of financing. Thinking about the financial documents, you'll get guidance. Yeah, don't overcomplicate them, but lean on your accountant, lean on advisors to help you get clarity on what you need, but don't make it hard. There's the business mantra, keep it simple, stupid, KISS. There are ways for you to keep it simple, find ways to keep things simple. Avoid credit card debt, avoid high cost lenders, avoid taking on debt if you can at all avoid it. And the online marketplace lenders, the Lending Club and all those, if you cannot get involved with them and instead substitute hustle and grit, that's the way to go because it'll be a lot simpler for you. What do you say, Josh?
Concur. Yeah. Money management. The systems that are out there, as you're getting started, have a system to track your expenses and your revenues and whatnot. It does not necessarily mean, especially for those folks who are scared of things that are finance, a system could very well be file folders. A system can be a steno pad and a pencil. A system can be index cards. A system is a consistent way by which you are tracking your expenses and your revenues. It does not need to be overly complicated than that. So, but if you do involve a computer, QuickBooks is the 800-pound gorilla in this space in terms of accounting. Xero is significantly cheaper. Fewer people use it, but I think it's a great product. But generally speaking, where you want to be is if you use a product that everyone knows, i.e. QuickBooks, then you're paying less for the service because people just know it. If people are like, well, I use My Money or I use Peachtree or I use Xero, people are like, what is that? I don't know it. So I'm going to charge you more money to use it and all that sort of stuff. And there's less resources for you to do it yourself. We talked about the financial reports, balance sheet, income statement, cash flow, all that. What do you need an accountant for? Tax advice. Again, seasoned, experienced. I really think you want to get to more than seasoned experience. Find somebody who's enthusiastic and helpful, someone who you vibe with. And then going back to the system overall, keep a firewall between your personal and your business stuff. It's very easy to go back at the end of the year if you've done nothing else and you took a bank account that was just for business purposes. It doesn't mean that it has to be titled, ABC Inc. But if you use one bank account just for your business and one for your personal life, your bookkeeper will thank you. It'll be tremendously easier. And as you need money for personal living, you transfer from one to the other so that if I looked at your bank account, your business bank account, I would have a really good snapshot of all the activity, all the expenses, all the revenue for a year. So if I had to go back on January 15th of 2023, I can look back at all those bank statements and really create pretty accurate financial statements from that. So any system will do, keeping your personal and your business separate. If you do those things, you will have saved yourself a lot of time, stress, agony, money, and all that and more.
And even if you have a sole proprietorship and you're filing your taxes all together, that it's like all that income just gets reported on your personal tax return, you still want to keep it separate. You still want a separate bank account. You can't harp on that point enough. I think that you want that separation for the business to be its own entity, its own thing in your mind. And another point, Josh, on that seasoned experience that I would add is get someone appropriate for your business. If you find out in your community who is the accountant or tax preparer that's working with all the other small businesses, Find that person, not maybe a white shoe, very fancy corporate style accountant who charges a ton of money, right? Find someone that's appropriate for your type of business.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to a friend of mine who is, I got a top shelf Las Vegas firm, and all I get to do is talk with the owner's wife. I'm like, well, when you're talking to a much a larger firm, and you are just basically, you make $50,000 a year and you've got a small business, you're not going to get any attention from a larger firm. You're just not. Yeah, and it's unfair and unrealistic to expect that. So I told him straight up, dude, you're at the wrong spot. You want to go to the best. I'm like, and I've got a pretty good relationship with him, so this is going to sound a little harsh. I'm like, dude, why are you even there? What is the point? You don't need that service level. You don't need those resources. You will be much happier with a sole practitioner here in town than going to the bigger firms and stuff like they might be more qualified, but you don't need qualified. You just need a basic, like you don't have individual unique needs. Like there are certain elements of tax that are very specific. Nadav has, he works with Texas A&M, and he's in a huge agricultural community. There are tax rules up and down about farms and how farms work and how agriculture works. I was in tax practice for 15 years. I saw Schedule F once. Nadav is also in Texas. They have a lot of oil and gas exploration, and we have some of it here too. I've never seen what those forms look like. No desire to either.
Yeah, you have to find somebody that knows what you're doing.
Right. And it's like, and these folks get paid for that specialized knowledge, but that's not what I do. I never handled oil and gas. I never handled farms. I'm in Southern California. We'll do a lot of R&D work. We'll do enterprise zone credits. We'll do all kinds of other things where I'm really familiar with. And I had a large practice around other elements about service business and things like that, which how do you operate and optimize? But when it comes to certain peculiarities, the corner street accountant might be just fine, and probably is. All right, let's move on to the next because we've got only 8 minutes left. The coolest resources you have for your business, use the local bankers in your branch. You don't pay extra for them. They're there all day long, and they're there to make you happy and feel good about yourself and your business. They are natural connectors that you don't have to have false pretense to talk to. Things that you probably need out of the gate: an accountant, a system, a computer, a way to get paid easily, Square, Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, all that. Things you probably don't need. Things that you don't need. You don't need new space. You don't need vehicles. You don't need furniture. Don't keep this easy, right? Once you get some decent cash in the door, you have 6-month reserves on hand, fine, then go ahead, have a good time. But keep it simple. Keep it basic. Yeah.
Remember, whatever you spend money on, and there's things you probably don't need, that's just profit that you've spent. The more you reduce your expenses, the more profit you got. Think we're ready for the next slide?
I think so.
We made it.
Yes. I get a gold star from Allie. And
that's a rare thing. And a kitten gold star today. Special gold star.
Not even, because otherwise, you know what would have happened to Dov? Allie would have thrown me in the litter box. Face first. Okay. Keep working the pitches. Anyone have questions about the material we covered?
Yeah, we got these last couple minutes is the great time to bring the questions, and you guys were great bringing stuff in the chat, thoughts about it, but don't be shy to jump in because this is an area that's confusing for a lot of people. It's full of, contradictory, and people that have not done it. This is a fear point, right? A reason why people are like, I don't want to get into business. Too scary. I don't know about all this accounting stuff. So the goal for us is to say, it's not scary. We've all been through this. It's possible to manage it.
You will survive. You will survive. Thoughts, questions, concerns on this? Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Shelley.
Perfect pitch.
Well, let's hear it then. She said, and also let's hear Quincy on his pitch too, because yeah. Suzette, if you can unmute yourself.
I was asking how can I improve my pitch? I typed that too fast.
Okay. Well, let's hear the pitch and then I could offer that.
You missed it. Suzette brought it for us earlier, but please do it again, Suzette. Let's hear it
Oh my
again.
God, hold on, I gotta find my paper. Hold on, I wasn't expecting this. So it is, my name is Suzette Nicole. I am the owner and founder of VIN LLC. VIN is an faith-based online jewelry t-shirt store. We are on social media. Our handle is Warrior Princess. Oh, I'm in Washington, D.C. area. That's it.
Can you go through the middle part again, please?
Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. I was finding my papers because I was taking notes and I was trying to read from afar. So anyway, let me start over with a deep breath and slower. Hi, my name is Suzette Nicole. I'm the owner and founder of VIN LLC. We are a faith-based online jewelry and t-shirt store. We're located in Washington, D.C. We are on every social media. Our handle is Warrior Princess.
Okay, as I've shared with some other folks, when it comes to something that's commercial based like this, so we're a faith-based t-shirt and apparel company, always include that next sentence should be something to the effect of what is seasonal for right now. So like right now could be, we're in autumn, we've got fall colors that have just hit. Next month, now is the time to talk about giving gratitude. Check out our I mean, it's still November, will also be, we've got our fall colors having hit. Shop for your Christmas wear, shop for your ugly t-shirt collection, shop for holiday wear, shop for your Valentine's. You want to give a reason for people to check out your site. And then instead of saying we're available on all socials, just invert that to say you can find us on all social media channels at Fame LLC, at whatever it is. Yeah. And knowing that you have, I would make sure to slow down on your diction, especially because your accent can be a little hard to understand for people that are impatient. So just make sure that you speak a little slower and a little clearer so that anyone who is not familiar with your accent isn't thrown off by it.
And at the same time, though, don't lose the energy and the magic that we hear, and it can be tough to balance that because I love the energy that you bring to it. And that's, it's just kind of hard to do both. And I often get accused as a Northeasterner in Texas that I talk fast too. So I'm very empathetic to that feeling.
Yeah, I used to get that a lot more often out here, but I've slowed down my pace of speech for the most part. I used to do telesales in college, so my diction was always pretty good, but to slow down my rate and speed of speech, I've managed to kind of tone that down a little bit.
It's great, Suzette. Really glad you asked about that, and hopefully that gives you a little bit of direction.
And let's hear from Quincy if we can for a second here.
We have our last minute, Josh. I would hate to get Quincy to drop it and then we got nothing to give him.
I've been working on it to where I'm gonna cut it out real fast.
Yeah. Let's do it then. Bring it.
My name is Quincy Dawkins. My name is Quincy Dawkins. I'm based out of Las Vegas. I have a jump service that we also planning on moving towards Compton, California. So, because we're also working with the youth and at-risk teens in gang prevention. And that's it. You can also catch me on YouTube, Afraid the documentary that I have out on YouTube. They can also find me on Instagram at stand on it _.
Dude, keep working at it. It's better than you were 2 weeks ago. Much better than you were 2 weeks ago. Firstly, I love your hoodie, by the way. Gotta love Crenshaw. Gotta give respect for Crenshaw. I would drop the Vegas part of it and just stick more with Compton. When I think about at-risk youth and things like that, it's not that Vegas doesn't have it. But if you're really going to play the gang intervention at-risk youth, Compton is going to have a much more powerful punch, because when you mention Vegas and Compton in the same sentence, my immediate reaction is, well, where are you? I don't understand. And by the time I'm done processing that and not understanding why you're talking to me about both, I'm sitting there saying, oh, wait a minute. So I get it, but you already completed your pitch, right? So I pick Vegas or Compton, and I think Compton's your better sell overall to talk about at-risk youth, given if I think about Vegas, the first thing people think about is the Strip. When I think about Compton, the first thing people think that is definitely gangland and out, very much at-risk youth. And you're going to get me right there with you in about 2 seconds. So I love where you're going. I love your energy. I love what you're doing in your mindset around this.
Yeah, I agree. I love it. Only thing I would add is one thing that you're doing that's special, different. Give us like just one line in there about what you're doing that's different, with what you're doing. So that'd be the only homework I would add for you.
That's why I added I have on YouTube, I have everything on there, Afraid, the documentary. That's what, they go to it, they'll see it.
But you want to give them a hook when you're talking to them,
Okay.
and be like, check out how we're doing spray paint murals, like we have a mural program that we're doing about empowerment, whatever it is. Give a hook to some reason why they would want to check you out.
Okay. Appreciate you.
Yeah, appreciate you. As well as, in addition to YouTube, think about short format videos as well, in terms of, think about TikTok, Snapchat, even Reels for Instagram and all that, to say, make sure, because that's a really good way to get people to start following and bolstering your presence on the social side of things, where you can break down what you're doing in 30 seconds to a minute intervals and start to really kind of play with that. Great stuff, Quincy. Bring it next week. I love it.
We went over time as promised. Look at that. We got there.
Into the litter box I go. Is that anything like dumpster diving? Anyway, thank you all for your continued engagement. Love this class, love where you're at, all that sort of stuff. Let's bring it all next week. Same bad time, same bad channel. Allie is going to be amazing in sending out the recordings. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to schedule a time. I'm happy to chat one-on-one. Let's just keep it real, keep it moving, keep working on the elevator pitch. If there's anything that we're, later on today that kind of caught you off guard as far as, what did you say? Hit me up later on. I'm happy to address it. I used to be a CPA for 15 years before I lost my license. Don't recommend, 1-star review on Yelp. But what are you going to do? Thank you so much for your time. Allie, any other parting comments other than I'm in the litter box?
No, so thank you, Nadav. Thank you, Josh. You guys make my job easy as always. To everyone else, thank you so much for your participation and engagement. It really does make class that much better. So we appreciate it. And I thank you all for being patient with me and having to dash off camera a few times. I appreciate it. I will email you all the recording tomorrow. If you don't get it from me by tomorrow evening, please reach out. Otherwise, we will see you next Wednesday. Have a great night, everyone.